Hello there beautiful, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now I know what you're thinking, Joe, it's way too early to be posting this video, we haven't even had the last event yet. But I wanted to get ahead of the game because obviously with Endwalker releasing tomorrow, I wanted to make sure I had as much time ahead of me to be dedicated to playing the game over on stream. So I'm actually releasing this video about Kain and his LD weapon and the event that comes along with him now, so that I have more time to spend with the game without, you know, leaving you guys hanging when it came to Dissidia. So if that's all stuff that you guys are interested in, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Of course, don't forget to check out all of my socials down in the description box below. Over on Twitch, of course, as I just said, I'm going to be streaming absolutely tons of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, so I'd love it if you guys came along to that. I mentioned and gushed about how excited I am in my last video, but obviously that's still present now, so if you guys would like to come along, come and talk to me about Kain, about Dissidia, about all things Final Fantasy XIV and Endwalker, then of course come and find me over on stream. On Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a brand new video, and today that person is going to be Nemesis the King, who I have a big thank you to for being particularly active during my Would You Pull polls and all of that good stuff, so huge thank you goes out to you, and I hope you enjoy your title card as well. And for anyone else who would like a title card, all of the details for all of the benefits to go with Patreon are down in the description box below. And lastly, of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators out there and resources related to Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, with special mention to Leo Bob and Mediu for their translations over on Reddit, Dissidia Info, Dissidia Compendium, Dissidia DB, and of course the lovely Tombury Troop for their infographics, as they are all resources that I use very frequently on this channel, and you should too. So going straight into the details of the banner, we only have the one banner this time, and there's only one new piece of gear when it's related to it. So we have Kain EX and LD, Barret EX and LD, and then Raijin EX only, as well as obviously Caius's BT. So first things first, let's address the elephant in the room. Kain is a character that we know is going to be getting a force weapon and BT later down the line. So whether that impacts your choice on whether to pull on this particular banner is something that we'll discuss at greater length later on, but for today we're just going to focus on the actual impact of what's new in this banner. Barret LD is around again, who with his crit fixing and follow-ups on his EX, etc. I don't think that Barret's a character that I particularly want to chase, but he's a great idea for a consolation prize, because he's not a character that many people pulled on, but he's always nice to have if you happen to get him. And range damage is the name of the game with this particular Intertwined Wills mission, so perhaps he might help you out with that as well. But as I said, if you are pulling on this banner, I wouldn't personally chase after Barret in particular. So let's talk about Kain. Honestly, Kain is really simple to talk about. There's no rework or anything here, just an LD weapon, and realistically all of Kain's other skills, like his basic skills, are nothing to write home about, if I'm honest. Like, they're single HP dumps, they have splash damage, you get a launch and a single turn delay with a bit of battery on his EX. That's kind of it. He only just increases his own offensive stats. He's a very, very cut and dry, just damage dealer. And at this point in time, without his LD, he's not particularly good at it. But the LD does kind of shift his role quite dramatically. So the attack itself is going to be a interesting one in that it's an AoE Brave HP attack, as in it will do 100% AoE damage the first time, and then it will follow up with more Brave HP dumps, but only to a single target. So it's kind of a really roundabout way of doing splash damage. But he also gets a special effect added to himself called Power of Dragons, which gives him offensive stats up, Brave and HP damage up, all that good stuff, and it ticks up a stack every turn that he acts. So even if you haven't just used his LD, which maxes his stacks out, you can just use his regular attacks, which have a decent turn rate, in order to build the stacks back up, so you're not relying on just using the LD to max them out. But what do you get when you do max them out? You get another attack called Double Jump. So Double Jump is a weird attack where he jumps up into the air and he delays himself for a period of time, and he doesn't do anything until he comes back down in terms of you being able to take a turn. However, when he does come back down, he does another double HP dumping attack. But the bit that matters with Kain is what he's doing while he's in the air. So after every turn, whether it's yours, your opponent's party, whatever, he'll do Lancet, which is a 3-hit AoE Brave HP attack that doesn't consume his bravery and just does damage. So he kind of turns into Yang, but in the air. And while he's in the air, he can't be hit by anything, even like guaranteed hit attacks, and just can't really be touched by anything until he decides to come back down. Now, it's a very simple LD, to be honest. Like, Lancet is really useful particularly if you're wanting to use him with a turn-hogging character, so somebody like Tidus or Vayne or Terra, etc. Because obviously, the more time he spends in the air, the more Lancets you're going to get, and therefore the more damage he's going to deal without actually being present in the party at all. Obviously, there are other characters that you can pair up with him that will work really well as well, such as Bart's, because of the auras and things like that. I'm actually, again, similarly to Maria, I'm really interested to see how he does with Core, because if you have Kain in the air throwing Lancets down, and then you have Core paired up with your third character, typically a turn-hogging character, then that's a lot of damage. That's like your entire party participating in attacks from one character. So as long as you're like backing it up with cool abilities such as, you know, Auron, for example, if you wanted to make sure your damage was high and your third character had a BT aura, you probably find there's a lot of damage just coming out without you actually having to try to do an awful lot, which is cool. But that is kind of all that Kain really does. Like, the Lancets and being in the air and unattackable is what he's all about now. Now, obviously, when his Force Weapon and his BT come around later on, he's going to get a lot more dramatically powerful in general, which includes the rest of his kit, but for the time being, Lancet is realistically what you're using him for. But if you like characters that do off-turn damage and do so in an offensive manner, such as Yang or Core, then chances are you'll probably quite like Kain as well. As an aside note, when I first did my research into Kain, it's one of the things I completely missed out, and I very nearly forgot to mention it again, is quite how good Kain is in a launch team, because despite the fact that he's in the air, he still participates in launches even though he's there. And because the effect of being in the air doesn't reduce his HP or his bravery when he does HP attacks, it means you're going to get Lancet followed up after you get the HP damage from the launch, so your HP damage is actually going to go through the roof. So, like I said, Core's one way of going around using Kain in a way that you can just pile on the damage, but launch teams are an incredibly powerful secondary way of doing it. So if you like using Selfie or, you know, Sid Reigns or anything like that, it's another outlet for Kain, and pretty good one at that. Core abilities wise, Kain's a bit boring, to be honest. Like, he does some damage with his regular core ability that gives you attack and max brave up, which is like, cool, nothing special there. And then when it comes to his LD core ability, he gets the large number of damage on the actual Rising Drive attack itself, and then you get brave damage up, HP damage up when attacking a single target, and max brave overflow for the caller. It's nothing particularly exciting. Armor-wise, he gets like attack keystone and then gets HP damage limit up, which is quite nice considering that a lot of his stuff revolves around keeping his bravery up because it's not consumed during Lancet. So if you're going to use Kain a lot, I would suggest getting this because it means you're going to get more damage over time when it comes to using the Lancet attacks. Now, as we all know, Kain is one of the first characters to get a Force Weapon. So he also gets a BT down the line as well. So the thing with this is, though, the reason I bring this up now, despite the fact that we're not going to be covering these weapons today, is do you pull for Kain now, try to get his LD, or do you want to wait till later to maybe get his LD while you're pulling for his BT and his Force Weapon? Because unlike a BT banner on its own, obviously the banner that features Kain's Force Weapon is definitely going to feature his LD as well. So if you're pulling for the Force Weapon, you're going to need to pull for the LD one way or the other, realistically anyway, so why not get it all at once? Well, the way I see it is that, yes, that's an option. You could go and wait until the FR comes out and try to pull everything all at once, kind of making, like, hopefully getting lucky, getting the LD, the Force Weapon, and the BT all in one banner. But if you were to get the LD now, it would save you trouble later down the line. But honestly, the real reason I bring it up is because I think what it comes down to is whether you're going to use Kain now or whether you're not. Like, I think that honestly, like, trying to think that far in the future is very difficult. You don't know what your resources are going to look like. I certainly don't know what my resources are going to look like 9-10 months in the future. And we don't know what's going to come about between now and then as well. There could be all sorts of surprises. All the planning in the world can't equate for everything. But if you're going to use Kain now with his Justice LD, and there are plenty of uses for Kain with Justice LD now, particularly if you like that off-turn playstyle where you're focusing everything on one character, Kain will do you very well. But I don't think that realistically you should really be factoring this banner in all that much at all, because if you're going to use Kain now, then great, go for the LD. If you're not going to use Kain now, then I probably wouldn't pull for him and I would save my resources for other banners, because when this one does come around, the LD is going to be featured all the same. And yes, it'll be more difficult to pick up the LD, the Force Weapon and the BT all in one banner, but realistically, it's just a choice thing. I personally wouldn't want to pull for a weapon that I wasn't going to use. And Kain, being a perfectly serviceable character with just his LD, I would base my decision making in the now with this particular question, and it's something that we'll see going forwards as well when other characters come around where they have their LD and perhaps their Force Weapon and BT, if they have one, come around later down the line. Do you want to pull for everything all at once, or would you rather grab the LD now, leave it, like make use of Kain or whoever it is for the time being while they have their LD, and then have the excitement to pull for that singular extra thing when it comes back around the next time? That's a choice thing, and it's entirely up to you guys. So now let's take a look at the Intersecting Wills event that's coming along with Kain, so that we can look at what the Lufenia Plus is going to contain. And honestly, this is probably the easiest Lufenia Plus we've had to date, on the back of the fact that the orb requirement isn't that stringent, and the fact that the enemy is not immune to delay or re-break or anything like that. So therefore, you're going to want to be able to make zero boss turn strategies realistically. There's actually two ways to go about it, but because we've seen the Centipede Tunnelers before and their Center Poison effect, I think we saw it in Theodore's event when it came around the first time story event, and realistically you do not want the Center Poison to be building up. So you can go about it with like a trap-based style, where you use the likes of Maria or Trey, things like that, so that you're able to just recover your health back and deal loads of range damage for the orb's sake, in order to make it so that they just die, they kill themselves over time. But realistically, what it wants you to do is to use somebody like Kain, who does range damage by being in the air through his Lancet attack, and then just delay and re-break your way to victory. And that's the way I've seen the majority of clears that I've watched do this. You can actually use characters like Prompto as well, because obviously with his link attacks and things like that, you've got the ways of dealing range damage. There is also a secondary condition for the orb, where if you deal range bravery damage and at least 500,000 damage in one turn with a single character, then it ticks up another 2. But because it's range bravery damage plus 2, you shouldn't really need to worry all that much about the orb itself. All you really want to worry about is getting as much damage in as you can. So if you wanted to, you could use something like Aranea and then Cloud of Darkness, because Cloud of Darkness can do follow-up attacks on Aranea, being re-break, delay, and range damage and all that good stuff as well. You could use Kain if you happen to pull him alongside a turn hogger, particularly somebody like Vayne, because then you'll be re-breaking and delaying all the live long day while still raining down Lancets and not having to worry about the orb at all. But as I said earlier, will work really well if you wanted to use Kain alongside Sid Reigns and Aphmau or something like that. As long as you're bringing the correct call abilities, then realistically your easiest way through this is just going to be to just not let the boss get a turn at all, and then just plow through them. So now, of course, we have Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why that might be the case. And honestly, this is one of the most evenly split sort of Would You Pull polls that I've ever made, which is a really interesting thing. So a big thank you, obviously, to all of my patrons for all of their votes and their comments. 20% of people said that they're going to use gems here. 33% of people said they were going to use 100 or more tickets. 17% of people said they were going to use less than 100 tickets. 27% of people said no because they are waiting for next summer when the FR comes around. And 3% of people said that they don't want it at all. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting to see how many people are happy to wait and how many people aren't. And obviously people do want that Kain in some capacity by the looks of things, because a lot of people who have said that they're using it less than 100 tickets are saying that they'll throw some tickets at it now, and if they don't get it, oh well, they'll wait till the next time around, which is pretty much where I'm at with it. Like, I'd love to get Kain because he pairs up really well with the kinds of strategies I like, where off-turn damage dealers paired up with your cores, your veins, etc. It works really nicely for me, but some playstyles it doesn't work so well with. Helps that I really like launchers as well. So let's go into some of the comments. Multiracial Lion says, I'm going to use tickets here. It's simple. Kain's got useful utility in being absent and having damage over time. I also feel, based on my experience pulling for his BT, that trying to grab the LD, FR, and BT at once is madness. I pitied the LD and had to token the BT. So I'll save future me the hassle. So the thing with the rates when it comes to LD, FR, BT is that LDs and FRs have very similar rates in terms of the percentage of the percentage of chance to get it when actually pulling, but it costs more in terms of G tokens to get the FR. So realistically, if you do get the LD now, it does save you the hassle, but like I said earlier, I think it's important to stay in the now with it. If you're gonna use Kain now, then I would suggest picking it up. Because, or if you do want to save, like, having to pull the LD for the FR and BT because you've got a lot of resources, then I would encourage you to at least find reasons to use Kain, because he might surprise you, because he's actually pretty good when used now anyway. Sergeant Tuffy says, overall, Kain's value is less than it would be because we do have an extremely valuable off-turn damage dealer that's easier to apply to most teams than Core. And while their niches aren't exactly the same, they generally do enough of the same stuff that if you have Core, I'm not of the mind that you need Kain. It's worth noting that because of the way he works, Kain is one of the absolute best units to be the third in a Sid Mao comp, since he can just sit there in the sky while Sid and Aphmao do their thing. He'll both contribute to launches and do his follow-ups, and he's the ideal holder of Kate's Sith LD core because he just sits there not taking turns for the entire fight. He'll get as many tickets from me because I really like Kain, but I do think he's a character that can be avoided if you're tight on resources or have Core. See, I'm of the opinion of put your hands together when it comes to Kain and Core, because then the third character gets loads of love all at once. Although I didn't mention Kate's Sith LD call, and that's actually a really good point, because Kain, you want to take as few turns as possible while he's in the sky. Giving him a call ability like Kate Sith, where you can benefit from it even though he's not there, is going to be a really good shout going forward as well. Booper Wiggum says, I should skip until the BT and FR weapon, but it's so far away and Kain's a favourite. He's never been particularly great until now, but his LD really makes him viable, and I for one cannot wait to use him in more content. I also missed Barrett earlier, so I'll be nice to maybe pick him up too. Bye bye gems. See, now I don't plan on using gems on this banner, it'll be tickets for me, but I actually really like Kain as well. I think that his LD really is quite transformative for him, and they're my favourite kinds of LDs, so they're the ones that I like experimenting with. Characters like Maria, you know, characters like Kain, all sorts of these like quirky, nuanced characters that, I say nuanced, he does one thing, he jumps up in the sky and throws Lancets down. But there's quirky combos that you can make with these characters that make me really enjoy them. And then lastly, JRPG fan says, 6 weeks ago I would have said gems for this banner, but switched to tickets thanks to Foresight. BT and FR will get gems for sure. Aside from being one of my favourite characters from my favourite game in the series, the jump mechanic that comes with his LD can lend itself to some interesting tactics between the pre-turn attacks and chain attacks, not consuming his bravery and being able to avoid attacks by being in the air. Since Kain is primarily a damage dealer, he can certainly be replaced in most parties, so he can easily be skipped for those that want to conserve more resources, since we know he returns as the first FR and can be easily picked up then. Hoping to pull the LD in 100 to 150 tickets, but I'll only be slightly sad if I have to wait until next summer to grab it on the rerun. See, this is where I was literally in this boat. This is literally how I felt, because I went through like the foreseeable future in C90, because I'm actually looking to save as much as I can through C90 era and rely on characters I already have to get through that, so that I can save as much for FR era as possible. So, but before we knew about FRs, I was like, gems on Kain, absolutely gems on Kain, love him, love everything he's about, love what his LD does. But now that we have Core and the BT and FR, I'm like, no, I'll use tickets, because as much as I would really like him, it's not the end of the world if I don't get him, because I can wait until the second time round. But like I said, it's really interesting to see how many people out there are keen on getting him now to save themselves having to get the LD in the second time round, and how many people are happy to skip it if it doesn't come to them easily, so that they can then just go all in the second time round. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of that as well, because I think it's an interesting topic for future reference too. So now we come to the big question of the video. Should you pull for Kain's LD now, or pull for it later, or not pull for it at all? With regards to the FR and the BT, like I said, I've presented pros and cons to both approaches. That's an entirely up to you thing, but on a personal note, I would only pull for a weapon that I was planning on using now, and then that is an added bonus for later on, for when the FR and BT do turn up, and it means that I don't have to pull for them then. But Kain does provide one thing to your party, but he does it very well, which is being out of the way and dealing off-turn damage with his Lancet attacks while your other party members do their thing, and they try to make it so that Kain doesn't get turns. And being in the air means that you can't hit him, it means he can't be debuffed, it also means he can't be buffed, so you have to make sure he's fully set up before he takes to the skies. But once he's off, your other two party members can do their thing. And sometimes that's a really good thing. Sometimes you want, certainly in the case of like Sid and Aphmau, where you only want those two characters to act, Kain exemplifies that to the nth degree. So like making sure that you build your party correctly around Kain is going to be paramount. But he does go in multiple types of teams. Like I said, launch teams, Sid Reigns, Lael, Kais, Cloud when his BT Plus comes round. There's lots of nice things that you can do with Kain in launch team. But not only that, but pairing him up with somebody like Core or Bart, and then a third character who is a turn hogger like Tidus, Terra or Vayne, where you can just continuously take advantage of this Lancet over and over and over again, because as long as Kain doesn't hit the ground, you can just keep going with it. So therefore, because of that as well, he's really good at taking short but sweet cool abilities like the aforementioned Case Sith, because if he's not on the field and he's not getting turns, then his turns aren't ticking down on his cool abilities either, so you could take advantage of that too. But that is going to be entirely what his kit does. If you like slower characters or you don't like turn hoggers or anything like that, the chances are you're probably not going to like Kain either. And therefore the reason that you would want to get Kain is to save yourself from having to get his LD when his FR and BT come up. Just bear in mind that if you don't like him now, then yes, you can pull for it all later down the line. So you could just go for it all on one banner. So if you prefer his kit when it's redone, when he gets his FR, etc., you can wait for that and try to get it all in one fell swoop, because the LD will be on that FR banner regardless, so the chance of you getting a dupe is always there if you do try to get it now. But if you get it now, and then you can only focus on the one weapon, which is the FR weapon later on, and then the BT is across multiple banners, so maybe you don't need to pull on that way. So realistically, it's all a case of how you want to play your odds. Kain's a valuable character, but he is a damage dealer, so he's not the be-all and end-all for your kit as things stand right now, and with events getting easier and easier over time, he's not an absolute must-have at this point in time. I would really like him because he pairs up really well with characters I like. The same may not be true for you. So that's all for today's video. I know it's a little bit on the early side. Do not come for me. I'm aware that this is a bit on the early side, but it is coming relatively soon, and I wanted to free up as much time for me to take in all of that Endwalker Final Fantasy XIV goodness when it goes live tomorrow. So I really hope to see lots of you come along for that. We do have Dimensions End Transcendence 6 happening at the same time. Hopefully I'll get that done before I move over to Endwalker, but the second I get through that queue, I'm not going to lie, I will be jumping onto that first because I'm so excited. In fact, I've never been so excited and nervous for a game's release in my entire life, because I really want this to do well online, but I ultimately really want to take in the story and really just enjoy myself. So thank you if you do decide to come along for those. I'll be streaming it pretty much until I'm finished with it, to be honest, which is going to take a while. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications on any future videos I might be making. And that'll be it from me. Enjoy your time with Kain if you decide to pull for him, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you then. Take care.